Cool.
Cool. All right. So here we are again, week 3. Yay, we made it 3 weeks. Is this a hump week?
Oh yeah. I don't know. Week 3. Good things come in threes, or
And it's usually
what's that Meatloaf song? The
Oh God. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
gosh, why am I blanking?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
You know what you're talking about.
Hey, listeners, viewers, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. If we even keep this in the
Was it
actual
two or threes? Oh gosh, what is that song?
2 out of 3 ain't bad. That one?
Yeah, 2 out of 3.
It's been a while since
Oh man.
voluntarily, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone.
We are here with our wonderful banter. You know, this week I don't have my classical. I got my 8 string because I'm doing some dark metal. You know, I think I'm gonna get lost in the woods and scream deathly. But I have this axe to kill people, which is it's still really pretty.
Yeah, tell me about that axe a little more.
This is a GOC Guitars. If you're listening, guitars. It's a 8 string. It's a Materia 3. It's a Final Fantasy 7 for all you Sony nerds like myself.
What does that even mean?
Materia is just a thing from the game. It's a thing you get for spells and extra abilities to train it up. I'm going to stop, otherwise I'm going to get really into.
I think I might fall asleep. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's I was looking for a lefty 8 string that wasn't $3,000. And something less expensive than a Kiesel. Though I love the Kiesels and I think they're awesome, and I'll probably get one at some point. I just couldn't justify spending $2,000 on something for. I wasn't sure what it was going to sound like, if I was going to use it that much. My own kind of thing. So I did some.
It's kind of funny on that website. You it's like $9.99, and then you start adding all the features you want, and all of a sudden you're like, put this in your cart, and it's like 2,200, 5,000, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, maybe I don't need that wood. Maybe I don't need this either.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need that either.
Why am I not why would I go buy a guitar that has I'm perfectly fine getting like a white guitar or a red guitar.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when you go on that website, you're like, I want this crazy wood that they've only used, once ever, and it's 3,000 years old, and
just because it looks cool. I mean, clearly there's no real advantage outside of it looks cool. So that makes me cooler, right? That's the way that it goes.
Sure.
But my only complaint about that site, like Halo Guitars has a custom building site that is great. Like you can put it together and see pretty much exactly what, like pick your woods, it all shows up. You know, it's clearly a rendering, but it gets you really thick and close to the final product. And Kiesel's site is you can pick out the stuff, but you just can't see it.
You never see it, right?
Which is kind of like, really? It's 2021 now.
It was okay back in like 2005.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, that's the other. It's like Warmoth Guitars and USA Custom Guitars. Though that's what this the green thing that I have sitting over there is. It's a Frankenstrat thing from USA Custom Neck and Warmoth body. It's a great guitar. I absolutely love it. But in terms of like now, it's like, okay, well, I can't really see anything, and I don't like the way you're putting it together. So never mind. You know, at least for me, that was a turnoff. You know, granted, I doubt I would have bought it anyways because, like every guitarist, it's like, just one more. Sure. I mean, what is this one configuration? What's this? What if I put this on it?
So Adam, I'm not sure anyone has been able to figure this out, because typically the videos we put up on their website, or on the YouTube, it flips one of our guitars around the other way, but actually both Adam and I are left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only mentioning that because this guitar is the only guitar in my entire life, which I just got like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, which is an Eastman AR 503. First guitar I've ever, like, wherever I went somewhere and I got to try a bunch of guitars and pick the one that I wanted. Yeah, because I went to Southpaw Guitars in Houston, Texas.
That is the mecca of. That's like, I don't know. I'm tempted to like throw this out there. Dear wife, if you're listening to this podcast, for my 50th birthday, a trip to Southpaw Guitars.
Right.
Me paying for it, just picking something out there.
Can I please have maybe $2,000 to spend too?
Yeah, well, I mean, that would cover most of the guitar that I would probably pick.
They they were really cool too. Like when I went there, so there's a place called Southpaw Guitars for any right-handed people. This is a very rare thing, and it's in Houston, Texas. And I actually travel a lot. Anyway, I go there and I'm like, wow, every guitar is left-handed except the crappy like $150 ones that are the right-handed ones. Which when I talk to like the owner and the guy, the manager there that run the place, they're talking about, yeah, they kind of did that on purpose, you know. So then when the right-handed friend invariably comes in, has to take the like 1980s, you know, whatever random brand.
That thing
Yeah,
that's in the
because that's the experience for left-handers. Like most left-handers don't like going to music stores very much.
not at
Just kind
all.
of
I
sucks.
mean, regardless of how I feel about Guitar Center in general, it's like going there is like, well, what the hell's the point?
Yeah,
I
it really stinks.
maybe see something that'll work there. You know, it's like I get to Google all these
Usually
cool.
what we get is we'll get like a Mexican telly or something.
Or Ivan has a decent amount lefty, like an RG.
Well, I'm talking about at a guitar center though. You're lucky to find like one guitar,
Yeah.
maybe two.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, it just ends up not being that interesting. So this guitar, I actually tried hundreds of guitars that day, and they were so cool. They're like, "This is your place. Go try whatever you want," you know. And they even brought like some Tao Farlow, like $10,000 guitars I should be looking at, you know.
Yeah.
Let me play them, and it was just really
Dude,
cool. Great people. I highly recommend going there. Um,
their Instagram. That's the dangerous thing.
oh
Checking
yeah.
out. We just got
So
these.
yeah, they were just really cool. Um, but it was funny because I this was the only guitar I tried so many, and there was a bunch of Eastmans there, and this is the one I liked the most. I didn't put like a, and not saying I had like unlimited funds, but it was like once I was finally there, I'm like I'm gonna max out whatever I have to get whatever I want, you know.
What can I ask forgiveness for? And hopefully go for there.
Yeah.
Go for there. Exactly.
Well, yeah, actually there was a Gibson ES 350 there, which is an awesome guitar, but it was like 7,000 something.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I was
that's
like,
not.
that's a bit over my price range. Was
Yeah,
it a 350? I think it was a 350.
that's that's what I got lucky with this guy because my wife actually gave me complete go ahead to get it because she's was probably just sick of me talking about getting a lefty eight string all the time.
Yeah.
She was like, "All right, fine, go ahead and get it." I'm oh, okay, click. You know, it was like I'll take it. You know,
Yeah.
and then COVID hit right in the middle of it, like right in the middle of the processing and the order. So I was like, oh God, I don't know, it's coming from China. But it actually worked out really well because Alibaba, this was that? No, it's not Alibaba. Baba. What the hell was it? AliExpress? God, what is that site?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a Chinese equivalent of Amazon or whichever. But they were
Yeah.
like the guy's like, no, you don't understand. You know, like we don't get paid till this is marked delivered at your door. So as much as it's all the funds go to an escrow and everything else, so we don't get to touch it. So if you argue or cut the order off halfway through, you know, we'll eat it and it'll come back to us. I'm like, okay, that takes a little bit of time, like relaxation off of that. But it took about a month and a half to get here, and it was done. It was just sat in the middle of nowhere, China, for
It
forever.
was aging for you.
Yeah, exactly. If only it was an acoustic, but it's cool. It's a composite neck, Atlas wood they call it. But this was one of those ones like those Colas guitars. Those ones that are
Yeah, I think I've seen those.
whatever they are, they're garbage. Like every review that I have found on YouTube or online has been like these guitars are crap. Like they seem like they're really cool. It's the aluminum body ones, you know. And
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
tempted to get one of them. I'm like, you know, for $700, I could use another electric. You know, if it's
Sure.
lefty, it looks cool. And then I went online and read all the reviews and watched all the YouTube things, and they were like, this is a garbage instrument.
I know a few people that bought the kits, but they were proficient in and they also expected that they would have to do fret work.
Mhm.
They'd have to crown. They'd have to do all those things, but they said once they did all those things, it was fine.
Yeah, see, I got definitely negative reviews. Like out of the 5 that I watched, and I did watch 5, they were like, yeah, this is composite neck, and he just like went like that with it, like literally bent the thing up. He's like, even with the truss rod, clearly something is going on. He's like, and I got another one from them saying, and the same thing. It's like, okay, and then I just saw an advertisement on eBay for one for like $2,500. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Buyer beware on that one. But with the GOC guitars, I did the same amount of due diligence, and like every review that came back, they're like, this easily gives a Strandberg a run for its money. It's significantly cheaper, and clearly it's not the same level, but it's really freaking close. And that I was like, all right. And this was like podunk guys.
So why can't you play better?
All right, listen up. It's because I'm not playing. Why we're both stuck this way we're at. Speaking of playing, let's talk about recording, the fun part. Or actually,
I guess what have you been working on lately? Then?
That's why I was just going to change mode. So I'm doing all those glass arrangements. That's like in my classical world. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, Philip Glass.
Yeah. I don't want to.
If anyone out there hasn't listened to enough Philip Glass, which might be a lot of you,
it's
really worth listening to. It's so good.
It is. It takes a while. It's definitely a bar of entry in terms of getting into it. But once you get it,
there's a little bit of maybe like a bump. But then again, I don't know. Like, so anyone who's ever watched what is that? Why am I blanking all of a sudden?
The movie with
with Starbucks and everything, that TV show, Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah.
So there's a scene in there, if you ever watched that, and she's talking about her dad was a composer. Starbucks is like the fighter pilot, she's like the Han Solo character of the show. And it's Philip Glass like playing piano. But it's her dad, right? Like it's her dad's music. And like the first time I heard it, like it haunted me, and I had to figure out what it was, and I didn't know at the time. I had heard Glass, but I didn't know at the time that was him. And then I like seeked out what that was. It was the Metamorphosis stuff or whatever.
Oh yeah, those are great pieces.
Yeah.
And it's like, what was the thing? The thing that turned me on to Philip Glass was actually seeing Dominic Traska, who is like,
great.
Seeing him and hearing him talk about
classical guitarist.
Yeah, the hybrid guy, who I still think is by far was probably the most underappreciated concert that I ever went to. Like it was like at the time, I was an ignorant freshman in college, thinking that I had just enough knowledge to make me cocky as hell, like every undergrad is. So I saw him.
I think I do remember after you were like, "Whoa, I've seen a lot of people do that," or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like a couple of years later, after I got some real knowledge and my ego totally just demolished, I realized what he was doing, and I was like, or this guy is totally next level and forget it. Like, don't even bother to try type of thing. And he's just absolutely brilliant, and I still think, I wish he never quit guitar.
Did he quit?
I don't know. Quit might be the strong word, but from what I heard, it was like record label issues and issues and everything else, and he was just like, screw this. And the last I heard, he's doing like set design in California, so which is disappointing, because I really think that he could have like pushed everything into a whole new thing with the guitar, and he did.
The industry is not particularly fair to the most creative folks in this business.
That it is. No, I think it's the way that is across every art form. The guys that push the envelope are kind of just like underappreciated.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of Brian Baker.
Yeah.
So like for a while there, Brian Baker is just like an unreal talent, musician, just unbelievable guitar player, really creative, like instantly recognizable, even as he's probably only like 33 or something at the time, or right now.
Yeah.
And for a while there, and it looked great, but he was like posting like stuff that he was working on like in a restaurant and like being a chef and posting like instead of like guitar stuff, like he's not full-time guitar musician, like exploring the world and just making music to make a living. He might genuinely like all those things, but it was just kind of funny, like
creative person thing. Like, as long as we're doing something that's pushing our envelopes and allows us to control.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
It's like that. I love to cook. I cook all the time here, and
but would you do it as a job?
That I could see actually doing
Oh.
because it's like, I mean,
Hey,
it was,
Julie.
yeah, exactly. Edit that out. No, but like I would be one of those places where it's like you don't get to customize the menu. You eat what I put in front of your damn face and you like it. So maybe that's the name of the
Man, that
restaurant.
reminds I guess we're just all off topic today. But
Yeah.
it reminds me, so I work my day job is in like engineering stuff. Because at one point I used to live in New York City and I would do like sound design and stuff for people, but I never really knew how like the electrons worked and stuff. So eventually went along with my jazz degree was working on a electrical engineering degree. So during the day, a lot of times I spend with electrical engineering, and now I have a really creative job where I get to think about all kinds of cool stuff. But anyway, previous to that role, I worked in a field where we had work that we did all over the world, really. But we had a lot of these jobs in Finland, and somebody was telling me about there was this place that was only open in the night, or not in the summer or whatever, because Finland only has summer for like 3 months.
You have to go, and it's like it's in the middle of like a
Well,
forest.
so it's actually on this light tower thing.
Okay.
So, and you have to book it like a year and a half in advance. So we had worked there for a while. So a friend of mine, him and his wife had booked it. Um, and it was like this 7-course meal, and it was only for you. There's the only people that were there in the whole place. Was you and your wife. In his case, his wife, and the chef and his wife or whatever would kind of talk to you and sort of figure out what you liked. And it was like seven. You said it was the most amazing thing in his
Yeah.
entire life, and it was all this like, oh, so you do like this kind of stuff? Oh, you like that? Okay, cool. I'm gonna make. Oh man, you got to try this out. This is the most awesome thing you've ever had in your life. Just trust me. I'll be right back. And of course it was like $1,000 or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, of course. Yep.
But he said it was totally worth it.
Yep. That's one of that's on my bucket list is to go to like a 3-star Michelin
Oh
restaurant and
yeah.
try it, just to see. It's like the headphone kick that
Oh
that
yeah.
I'm still on, but my amp comes tomorrow by FedEx, so we'll see if
Oh,
that makes.
nice. A headphone amp. Yeah.
I'm definitely curious to see what that'll do.
So my wife was sleeping. But she had my headphones are upstairs, and I didn't want to wake everybody up. And I have other headphones and whatever, but they're all actually in the same spot, and I would have waken up a lot of people. So my wife's grottos were downstairs, so that's what I'm using today.
Yeah, hey,
Hey, they
whatever.
sound pretty good.
That's why I'm using the hi-fi mans. They sound fantastic. So that'll be the cool thing when they get the when I get the amp, because that'll be the difference.
So you're working on the glass stuff. I know you've been sending me some of the
Yeah, a
art
little
and
bit.
stuff.
I'm not. I mean, half of me is like, I don't want to blow my shtick just yet till it's like done and out before I like saying, oh, this is what I'm doing of his, and then somebody else who's better than me take it and run with it. It's like, no, this is mine, and play with my back page. Cover this up. Nobody can see the music there. So it's
I don't think they'll see it.
yeah, I know. And I'm
Unless
just
they have like, well, it was that Red Faction or whatever those shows where they like zoom in,
yeah, I
looking
was
at the
gonna say
reflection of the glasses, and
that was Blade Runner.
was
Blade
it?
Runner. That where they're like, okay, bounce off the mirror, okay, go around here, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm doing the glass thing. I'm looking for new etudes to kind of go through. I've been doing an etude a day type of thing, simpler stuff, just to kind of sight read. But I also want like I was on a big Gilardino kick, who's an absolute mad lad when it comes to doing classical guitar work. It's unbelievable. Like he figures out ways to torture you in ways you never thought. But it's still really cool. Like I think it's
Yeah.
cool. Not something concert worthy, but it definitely like I don't have very independent fingers. Okay, do etude. What was it, 14 that I was working on, where it just has this section that is just like crazy, but it's a chromatic run and on the top voice, but you're also doing. Now I got to get my guitar to actually play it, but it is like wickedly awesome and hard, but not like what's the way to put it? Not hard just to be pompous, but it's there to really train your hands to do a particular thing. I'm just muting the guitar before I unplug it.
Fair point right here. Notice how easy it is to get guitars. Like A lot of people ask me like how we practice or whatever like that, and I'm like, just make guitars really easy to find. They should be out like they're not in cases. Like notice, I don't know, is the guitar you're gonna grab in a case?
Yes, that one is because that one
Ah, so you're
is.
gonna kill my
Well,
mood
I mean,
here.
listen, I got a guitar in a case there, another one in the case there, another one in the case there, and my electrics are out because they can take punishment. My acoustics can't take the same amount of punishment. Like if my electric fell over, it'll be fine. If my acoustic fell over, it probably would be all right, but I don't want to take that risk. You
Yeah,
know,
sure.
that's the difference. You know, my acoustics are just there's a lot more that can happen to them and totally make them non-functional. Like an electric guitar, I can take a quarter-inch X-Acto knife and like stab the top, and it'll be fine. Can't do the same thing with an acoustic guitar.
All
It is
right,
a,
fair point. All right,
so,
as Adam goes and looks for this guitar. Do 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 do. Anyone listening on the podcast, he's taking his headphones off.
I can't hear all your snide remarks because I don't have my headphones on.
What a
So,
jerk!
this isn't about you. So, so he's got this. It starts with this type of section,
Oh sure.
and I gotta pull this from memory. And he moves it up, repeats. Then here, and then this is a crazy. Let me slow that down. Like that type of
That's
thing.
cool.
It's wickedly cool. I wouldn't play it in a concert, but it's like I can feel it in the back of my arm. You know,
Yeah,
it's
you could play it in a concert. Sounds cool. It reminds me of who am I thinking of? Not Barrios.
anyways, very very cool.
Who's the like atonally classical guru?
There's Hensei.
Starts with a
There's
B.
Babbitt,
Uh,
Milton Babbitt, but he didn't write.
I don't
Did he
think
write a
of it.
guitar piece? I think he might have wrote a guitar piece. Are you talking specific for guitar?
Yeah.
And it starts with
Oh,
a
I
B.
thought it was a B.
I mean, I would say Bogdanovich, but he's not
It's not.
atonal.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking Bogdanovich. More older than that. And it doesn't matter.
Damn it!
I'm
No,
probably thinking the wrong letter.
no, no.
It's a C. What about a C? Any D's maybe?
I'm getting your relative. I'm getting a name. It starts with the A B C D F G H. It's a J. It's a J.
Yeah, they.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Um,
Who are the
no,
big like atonally people?
for classical guitar,
Yeah.
don't really know. I mean, there's
Gosh, why am I blanking?
not sure why is it Ginastera? That's he wrote it. Is
Bigger
it?
name than that. I thought it was like it's not Barrios.
Yeah,
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I know
anyways,
Barrios is like much happier than that.
yeah, slightly.
Wow, we're in pure nerdville right now.
Yeah, everybody's losing a lot of street cred. We're gaining huge in the well, we're losing street cred because we can't think of the damn name.
Or I'll think of it. We'll put it in the comments or something.
Yeah.
Look at our YouTube page. We'll eventually figure it out.
Or if you know, comment on it and let us know.
That's right.
So that's pretty much all that I'm working on there. I mean, I have my normal routines. I'm finding that I need a little bit longer of a workout before I get into heavy playing nowadays. But I think that's because I'm doing a
That's
lot.
interesting. I noticed. It's funny because I had a band called Chroma Drive, and I'm gonna try to bring this all together. But I found that it takes me about 2 hours to warm up now these days, just to like get all the crap out of my playing. So it's like I kind of have to like do so much movement and sort of play around and get my pick moving a certain amount of time, and it really is like 2 hours. So when I play a gig, I'll try to like grab a guitar and just like get all that crap out of my it's it's almost like I have to play all this stuff so that I don't play all that stuff, and
Yeah,
then
no,
my hands do more or less what I tell them to, and I play a lot better. And I noticed the same thing. Like I used to play basketball all the time with my brother. It would take me like an hour to get to where I was playing pretty good, but my brother, he was the kind of person that like he only deteriorated from the time
mhm.
on. He was a much better shooter than me. Um, but it's like you don't play. Let me warm up for an hour, and then we'll go play those people. Because don't touch a basketball. Don't because you only get worse as time goes on. It was like time trying to time that whole thing out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was like I can finally start shooting like after an hour, and it'll start some level of consistency happening. And I think the same thing with music. It's kind of like I don't for whatever reason I really have to get. It's almost like I have to get all this like cobwebs out every day.
Yeah. No, it's just like my normal. It's on the well, I mean, it is a typical on a typical day. I'll get 3.5, 4 hours of practice in. Typical, even if I'm teaching
Yeah,
that day. And it's like the first hour of it is nothing but technical stuff, like doing scales, doing well. I count the studies as technical work, like
yeah,
just sing. And then if I'm using that piece in a particular concert, then I'll switch that, or I'll keep it as a technical study, but I also will practice it in terms of musicality later on. And not that I'm not paying attention to that, but it's like I need to have that stepping stone, and I'm finding that I can't just there's certain exercises I just can't jump right into without some form of more resistance than if I did something else first, which I guess makes sense, in one sense that
yeah.
I'm doing is getting older. So,
Do you
which,
find like I find like it's not so much the technical thing. Like there's some level of like technical warming up you need to do just to get your hand to like do what you tell it to do in a way. But I feel like a lot of it's more like mental, at least for me. It's almost like my brain needs to cycle through all these things and try a bunch of stuff before I'm ready to um I don't know, actually just be in the moment and play what I'm thinking.
you
So
know,
coming from the improvisation world too, right? It's like
yeah, I think
I'm
that,
constantly like making new music,
mhm.
and that's where I
And I guess that would be the specific difference. Like with me, the cobwebs are more like I got to get my fingers to move quicker,
yeah
thing. And that's clearly everybody has that to an extent. And the people that don't, I already hate you. But there are those ones where it's like, what? I just play. It's like, great, super.
yeah, but I think that's more like more or less like my brother with basketball. I think there's some people that just start, but then it sort of like diminishes over time,
Hmm.
and not necessarily stays. It's like you can't focus that long, maybe or something.
Yeah,
But
I mean, like I said, 2.5, 4 hours, that hour of stuff, and then when I get to the actual pieces, I'm worried about musical and analysis, really diving in, being like, okay, do I play it in this position? Like with the thing I got today, I'm working on somebody else's music, needs an electric guitar part, and he just got it to me. And I spent most of the music time today working out where am I going to play it positionally. What's the most efficient grouping with it because it's octatonic and in seven, so it's clearly
nice.
pop music.
Sounds like stuff I write.
Exactly. Work that out. But enough about me. What's the stuff you're working on?
And I'm stuck on this recording. Um,
Which is the main topic of tonight's discussion.
oh, look at that. Nice.
Go
That was
figure
like
it.
subtle segue there. I'm gonna tell you exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. So maybe some backstory since we're going there anyway. Um, Probably like it's been over 10 years now, believe it or not. Um, I had moved back to the Ohio area, and previous to living here, before I lived here, and then my wife and I moved to New York City for about a year. Um, I was playing with a guy, and it was kind of like jazz fusiony stuff, but he was a big Meshuggah fan, and so was I. And even though they were doing like jazz stuff, when I came back to town, he was basically like, "Well, I already kind of replaced you, etc." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "That's cool. I totally understood. I had left,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever." And I'm like, "Hey, but I noticed, that you're a Meshuggah fan. Like, what would you think about doing kind of a metal jazz thing or something. And he was like totally into it. He's like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, why don't you write some stuff and then send it to me? So I wrote all these charts out, and the first song I wrote was this, and it's really not even Meshuggah, which is kind of funny. But the first song I wrote was a song called Pi, which changed time signature based on every measure based on the number of pi. So like if you think about pi, it's 3.14159 blah 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 blah. So I would do like a measure of 3 and a measure of 1, then a measure of 4, then a measure of 1, then 5, etc. And I did I think 102 digits. And I wrote a song called Pi.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough about that song is when there's a 0, instead of doing nothing, I made it a 1/8 measure, so the beat like flips. But I think that what's interesting about that song for me is that it hopefully doesn't sound like that. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't sound like
listening to it.
it's
I
just
mean,
this
I
crazy odd time signature thing. Anyway, it turned into this band called Red Side Visible, and we recorded an album, and it had horn players, had two horns, alto and sax. There was some screaming and guitar, bass, drums, and we recorded it, and the band was pretty good. Like we started playing shows, we did some TV spots, we played in Europe. It
Mhm.
was it was kind of taken. We did a
Airport for that.
what's that?
I took you guys to the airport
Oh, did
for the
that's right. Yeah, jeez. Yeah, and so we went. The
see.
band was doing pretty well, and it was a fun band because there was like nine or I don't know 80% of it was really technical, very specific, and then there was a whole improvisation element to the band. So any of the solos and stuff like that were all improvised, and we had like really everybody was a jazz person, but who liked metal,
Mhm.
and the band was doing fairly well considering. And anyway, during that time, so I'd written all these songs, and then he had written some songs too. And I would say it was probably like 60-40 on that set. So the sax player ended up leaving, and there was two sax players. One of the sax players who was like really into it, like just unbelievably nailed some of the stuff that really wasn't written for sax because I didn't know what I was doing. Um, he ended up getting he's now a PhD, wonderful player,
Oh yeah, he's incredible.
incredible musician.
Can we
And
not?
what's that?
Can we not name him?
Oh, we can name it. Chris Harold is his name. He also has a band called Resurrecting Id, which
Yeah.
so he really got into metal. It's a metal sax
Oh,
thing.
the albums are awesome. They're
Yeah,
great.
really really cool stuff. Um, Actually, it's Doctor Chris Harold at
Yeah,
this point.
you better not forget it.
That's
Apparently.
right. There's probably not that many times people get to hear that when they've worked so hard for those things. But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, here's this like jazz metal band and whatever. So during the time we were playing a lot, I actually wrote a bunch of new songs, and then the drummer Paul, he had started working on learning those tunes. It was kind of funny. The songs are really hard. So like basically, I would write the songs, and then like 6 months later, Paul would be like, "So I finally came up with something for this song." And then Paul does have these like rhythmic illusion things where like it's in 5, but then he's playing something that sounds like it's in 4, but it's like every 13th beat it comes around or whatever. Some like crazy, like they call it rhythmic illusions anyway. So that's happening at the same time all these other things are happening. So there was a whole second set of stuff for another album that was going on. So about 3 years, 2 or 3 years after the first album, Paul actually went and recorded all the drums. So this was like 2013 or so. And at the time, I had recorded some guitar stuff, and we got some, maybe like one sax thing. But it never got finished. And then it just kept being this like thorn on my side that like never got done. Like I said, like 2013.
Mhm.
Now it's 2021, and the album still hasn't been released.
You're like Tool.
and so since the coronavirus stuff hit, I decided, you know what, it's the time to like actually do this right. So I think it was like June or July. I went and I started just working on it again. So for at first I tried to just kind of like remix it and see what I could do with the stuff, but it really wasn't working out that well. Like I couldn't get the mix to go as well as I wanted to and all this stuff. So then I end up one day, and it was this. We can get into this sometime, but it was all modeling that I was using at that point, and I was trying all kinds of new modeler stuff too, and like swapping them in and out, and it just wasn't. The mix just sounded like really flat. And then I went and I just like crappily mixed or mic'd one of my amps and with a Marshall head, and it just sounded like a million times better with like a real amp as opposed to modeling. And so I went and I just re-recorded everything on the album, um, all new bass stuff, all new guitars. I added a bunch of viola and violin and added a ton of vocal stuff. It gave it like a fresh new look. And what's kind of interesting is even though I wrote the songs probably like in 2012 or something, so it's been maybe 10 years, maybe it was 2011 even. Um, just like kind of revisiting it, it still sounds kind of fresh and new, and there's been sort of like a, I don't know if it's a renaissance, but like a kickoff. There's like a lot of like jazz metal now that there wasn't 10, 11 years ago, but
What do you
I
con-
still think it sounds pretty unique.
what do you consider it? More of a math metal thing, or like just to throw a genre out there?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of math metal. There are a decent amount of improv sections in it. In fact, there's a whole like 7 minute section that's just like gong improvisation.
So it's really, really
But
out
then
there.
there's a lot of stuff where it's really technical. So like one of the songs is called Dislocated, which is the thing I've been working on this week. Which it was Dislocated Prime Real Estate was the original name. I don't know what it's going to be at the end. But it was because everything was a prime. I don't even know how I came up with that name, but everything was a prime number. So all the rhythms, all the time signatures are all prime numbers. So and it starts like it's like 2, 3, 5, whatever
Yeah.
these rhythms. So not only the time signature, but like the any like rhythmic groupings are also these prime numbers. And again, the goal is not to be overly tricky with it, but it's sort of like a creative thing to sort of how can I make that sound like just like no one will notice that it's doing that.
Exactly, exactly. There's a just a quick side on it that it's
Yeah.
like, part of the creative process. Everybody was like, "Well, if I have like unlimited options, I can be super creative," and I'm like, that's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
When you have like a huge amount of things where everything can go, it's like, oh God, I don't even know where to start. You need to. I find that I'm much much more creative when things have put limits on it.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
definitely.
it's and just like one of my composition professors is like, I always name my pieces before I even write them.
It's
And he's like,
not.
but that gives me something to aim at, versus just kind of whichever. And that's
Yeah.
just, everybody has a different approach to get into that headspace. But I'm kind of a both and. It's more like, if something sounds cool, great. And if a name comes to me at that time, super. But if not, whatever. So, anyways, just wanted to go on a little bit
That
of a.
reminds me. When you say that, there was one of my favorite solos I ever recorded on something, and I can't even tell you what song it was for. But I remember it's funny because I remember it is in my head. I was thinking this is an argument between a woman and a man, and that's the approach I took to the improvised solo.
Mhm.
And so there's this sort of like it starts with like some like higher notes that are sort of they're not so mad yet, you know, and then the response a little bit lower, and then it ends up being this like call and response sort of thing where and then all of a sudden like she says a lot and then he has to respond with a lot or maybe he doesn't respond with a lot, it became this in my head. I was imagining this argument, and it's really interesting to take like I look at improvisation as like composing on the spot.
Mhm.
And anyway, it's kind of interesting, yeah, when you just said like putting a name on it. I like that idea because it's kind of like putting you in a headspace to use
Yeah, exactly.
to write
Like for
solos.
myself, it's kind of like a both and. I think I already said that. Like sometimes I'll think of a name first and then write to it. And other way, like that one piece that Jim Marin premiered for me, the one that I wrote in school, that they break their tools. I had that line first, and then I wrote the thing about it. And by the end of the piece, the guitar is completely detuned. Like that was the point. You know, it's like breaking
Yeah,
the tool.
right. Yeah. That's
Um,
interesting.
and I just listened to it the other day, and I was like, God, that was actually pretty good. You know, it's like you're your own worst critic till you have some distance in listening to it.
Oh
But
yeah.
on that note, like with the recording and everything else that you're doing, you know, it's like getting into they kind of get away from getting into creative aspects, but back to onto the focus of the record.
Yeah.
Um, like you're in the spot of redoing everything again, just because of a tweaking thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the endless battle that we all kind of get into when we're doing our own music. Like I wish I had somebody sitting over my shoulder being like, dude, it's done, let it go.
Yeah, right.
Because the classical album that I have recorded 3 times.
Sure.
Like it's like I
Yeah,
think I can.
so Adams had the pleasure of me sending him.
Oh yeah, no, it is a pleasure. I love listening to it. I really do.
So
So
yeah, I'm working on so I decided to re-record all the solos for all the songs, the guitar solos, because there's sax solos too. So watch out for that,
yeah.
and they're amazing. And you know, in improvisation, like when you record something live, you just accept it. Like it's a moment in time, and it is what it is. So actually, the first couple solos that were sitting on there for the last 7 years were a first take sort of solo of the moment. And there's something special and magical about that whole thing. And I kind of got used to what they sounded like. But I thought, well, maybe I should go back and re-record some solos because hopefully I've gotten better in the last 7 years, you know, or whatever. And I have more to say or something. And since I re-recorded everything anyway, so there's really only 3 like real guitar solos on the whole album. And yeah, is that right? Yeah, I think there's 3. There's only 5 songs actually, and it's still like 60 minutes long. So this is the kind of album this is.
Yeah.
But I re-recorded 2 of the solos, and I was generally happy with them. The one of them was a one take sort of thing, and it came out really cool. I think I did like 5 takes or something, and took the best one, and it came out really nice for this one song. And then the second one I kind of worked on, but after like 10 takes or so, I kind of was able to piece it together in a good way. This one though, Dislocated, what I noticed is it sounds way too much. Well, initially it sounded way too much like the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was really easy for me to drift into sounding like other people.
Mm-hmm.
And my initial reaction to those kind of things, it just kind of makes me want to throw up.
I remember.
So every time I hear it, I'm just like I can't get past that. Like I don't know how to get past that. And so it's kind of an interesting thing though, because it's sort of forcing me to be creative, because I'm saying, well, why does this sound like either myself too much or sound like somebody else too much? And it's forcing me to be creative and sort of like come up with new things to throw at it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is I think I'm about 70 takes that I've saved and about 70 that I've deleted.
Yep.
And I just can't get past it. I really like the first part of it and sort of the ending that I've come up with. And by the way, these are improvised, so I'm trying to keep it improvised. So the sort of, I have an idea for how the beginning should be and an idea for how the end should be. But it's a fairly long solo. It's like a minute and a half long of time. I feel like I'm doing stuff that sort of fits. I guess it's good and maybe kind of cool, but it doesn't seem good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to get past it really.
I think
I've taken so many takes, I don't even know. Like I've tried like everything. Like Adam will send me. He's like, "Well, have you tried like playing it like this?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have like 17 takes like that."
That particular for dislocated. Like the last time it was like, well, what about there was like 16 or something, and then I think you got to a happy spot.
Yeah.
But this one, it was like tons of them, which
Oh,
is
there's
great.
so many.
I like listening to that type of music. So like while I'm cleaning the kitchen and doing like after everybody's asleep, throw my headphones on and
Yeah.
clean. It's like, oh, okay, I can listen through these at that time through good headphones. I mean, sometimes I'll just play it through the
Yeah,
phone.
and then, like the whole thing is in like five, and the like harmonically, there's not that much happening. So I do a lot of stuff where like I superimpose harmony
Mhm.
on it, and it's pretty simple. So you can do a lot of stuff. You can almost go anywhere. But yeah, I don't know. So that's what I've been working on, and I
And
don't
then,
know why I care so much. Like I'm trying to not like like I said
well,
like
because it's permanent. I think that's the big thing that maybe is slowing everything down. Like even with myself and doing the classical recordings, it's like tape doesn't lie, as is the big thing. So when you're hearing it back, it's not like you can have a better gig the next day.
yeah
Whatever. It is what it is, and it's going to be there, and it's a matter of you putting your stamp on it. Like I've had the recordings for the classical album done for a year and a half now, so I'm slowly. Hopefully, I don't catch up to you in terms of time and actually get this done. And I edited down a couple of tracks, and then I got stuck on one where I just made like there's a buzz note that it's like there is no hiding it. It's like a melody note. It's like you've got to be kidding me. The oh fudge type of thing. And it's like,
yeah
well, maybe
sure
fix it. And it's like, no, I can't fix it. And I thought I had another take of it and I don't. And so I was like, do I want to re-record that track? Well, I can't re-record it because it's not in the same space. It's never, that's the downside of it, recording a classical is that like, you move the microphone or you move the footstool, it's done. It's not going to sound the
oh
same.
yeah sure
So that's part of the issue, though I might still give it a try and see what the hell happens. But the that just killed the momentum. I was like, well, I can't just not include. It was a 3 movement work. I can't not include the second movement because
yeah right
like a best of thing. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I just like totally lost a mental battle with it, and then I finally like the other like a month and a half ago, I think I sent it to Steve, the recording of it,
yeah
oh God, this is I just can't put this out. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, that is nothing to be ashamed about at all. He's like, there's things that I would like, but that's me. He's like, I'd like some more phrasing on some certain things, but otherwise he's like, that's great. Consider your audience. He's like, you're not aiming for GFA level here. You're
yeah
you're
right.
you're able to get it out there and have it be you. So stop with your mental garbage and just get it done. And that helps. I just haven't had a chance to breathe and sit. The big catch for me, it's like I can either practice or I can edit. I can't do both.
Yeah
You know,
sure
I just don't have the time to do both. So I'm
yeah
considering paying somebody to do it. Just to I can sit back and not have to worry about doing the editing, and I can keep my skill level up. At least that's what I tell myself. So
yeah it's tough too like I know and I kind of mentioned this on my Facebook page a few weeks ago, which was like now that I've redone all this stuff, and I think it's coming out pretty well. I'm really struggling with putting it out. Like I see so many people putting stuff out right now, right? Because the music industry has just been crapped on because of COVID, and there's no gigs, and even the gigs you have, they're not really paying. Like I have a gig in a few weeks. You guys can watch it online with Night Terrors, which is another album that I recorded last year that I need to get to mixing. Actually, it's been mixed mostly, but I've told myself I need to finish this Red Side Visible thing so I move on. That's also another problem is it's stopping me from writing and all kinds of other things, not finishing it. But at the same time, like I see people putting stuff out, and I see like no one buys albums anymore, and everyone streams or whatever, and even if that, it's really like limited attention span. Like I don't think I can put the album out and no one care. And I like to think that I don't care, and I try to like go into making music with not caring. But I don't know. I put thousands of hours into this thing now,
mhm.
and the thought of like selling like 3 downloads or whatever, and then have even if you have like 1,000 streams in a month or something like, and you get 3 cents for it. I don't care about the money so much, but it's just like it just doesn't feel very valuable, you know.
And yeah, that's a I particularly, and I'm kind of counter that with that. I don't care if it gets streamed or not, and I don't. I'm just going to put it out. Like when it's
Yeah,
out there, it's out there. I just want it out. It's something that's done and complete, and for myself. But I think that's where I get hung up is that like, it's never good enough. There's always something else that I want to improve on with it. So that's why I'm kind of like keeping it back because it's like it's a business card in one sense. I look at it
yeah,
as a credential boost, and it's not that it's terrible. And I'm clearly over analyzing my own thing. Like
sure.
the amount of internal pressure that I put on myself when I listen to stuff. It's crazy. I have to stop editing after a while because it can be massively depressing. Like,
Oh, sure.
granted, I'm talking about like and you're to the like a note will come out like that rather than like that, and it'll be like that's it, and then it'll
Yeah,
move
right.
to something else, and it's like to me, it's like what the. Come on! I couldn't hit that stupid note. Why
Yeah,
didn't I know
right.
I was recording it? We're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about a second as it goes by, and then it's like, oh, and then a couple of days later, I'll go back and re-listen to it. It's like, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal, and kind of it helps to have that disconnect. But then I start editing more, and I get right back into that headspace. It's like
Yeah.
I can't stay out of that particular.
That's like when I sent you those solos the other day, and I think this was for the other song, and I was like, I wrote all the notes out for it.
Oh
So like it was like the first part, the second part, the whatever, and I was like, kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
like loses time or whatever here, and you were like, well, I guess I heard that it was sort of losing time, but it seemed okay to me. Like the intention sounded good, and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like very nitpicky, but like you do that to yourself, right? You
Oh
know?
yeah. I mean, you get into, and I think the whole reason is because we give a damn. It's like we
Yeah,
really care about putting out something well, but there's that fine line of like we're talking about. Well, we weren't talking about it on the podcast, but we were talking about it, how like real drums versus
oh yeah,
samples and stuff like that, and accuracies. Like, did everything have to be exactly metronomic in the playing, or do you want a little bit of humanization to it? Which I find it
sure,
hysterical. Those are options in the tracks now. Like in Easy Drummer and Superior Drummer, you can humanize it and give it a little bit of leeway, so it's not boom every single time. And I think that's great. But and there's clearly a line between humanizing something and not being in time. That's
well,
there.
and then those algorithms they use for the humanized thing, they're never quite right, right? They like
Yeah.
they look at it like it's a random like, oh, maybe it was a little early, maybe it was a little late, and they put some like um I don't know what's like a predictive mate or predictive control kind of thing on it, and they say, well, the person was a human, so they probably were late here and early, but like a really good drummer, they might just be late because they meant to be, because it
Yes,
just felt
exactly.
right. Um, and it doesn't really capture that sort of notion of it,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
And that's something that happens in the live room experience. Like if you're
Yeah,
playing
right.
live with a drummer, you'll get into that. Your
But
brain.
but even like when they're listening to something and they play along to it, um, they can just be like they can just feel these like little like micro time things where
Mhm,
it just feels good to be a little bit late, or
mhm.
behind the beat or ahead of the beat. Those kind of
Yeah.
terms you hear,
Yep.
right? Um, so
So
yeah, that stuff's all interesting.
and I guess this kind of ties into the self promotion thing that we were slightly like. We'll start texting each other, and I'm like, we should save this for the podcast. We should save it for the podcast. And let's not get all of our thoughts out here. Let's save it for the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Like I make a note because apparently that's what the way that I do it. I make a note. It's like keep this for the podcast, and I have a list of things. But it's like on that note, it's like a matter of like once it's done, once it's complete, and you put it out. How do you self promote and get through all the noise and get it to a point where it's going to be heard to an extent? It's like
Sure.
one thing that's nice about teaching that to be blunt, it's like I have a built-in clientele. At least they'll check it out. It doesn't mean
Sure.
that they'll listen to it a lot. And I don't. really care either way. They don't have to have it on repeat 24/7. That would be nice because that would bring in some money, maybe like 7 cents or something like that. I think it was a band that had their album paid for with a 5-hour silence track.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and then Spotify blocked it.
Put the kibosh on that pretty quick. It's
Right.
like,
They're like, yeah, just listen to this at night. You're like, cool.
Yep.
They convinced like 1,000 people to do that every night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they made like 20 grand and paid for an actual album after that.
Yeah.
So it would be funny if that didn't make as much money as the silence.
I'm sure it didn't.
Yeah, probably not. But the self-promotion thing is like nowadays, like you've everything is tied to social media, which is a royal pain in the butt for me. I can't stand social media. I've pretty much just about disconnected as much as humanly possible, but still having a presence for music. And that's literally the only reason that I'm there. It's like I have a music account, so I have that kind of like tied to it.
Yeah, right.
I found it just was being too much of a time suck and an energy suck for me to be happy. But regardless of that thing, your personal preference, if you love it, who cares? That's great. Super. You do you. But the pushing it on social media to get traction without being hey, this person I haven't talked to in 10 years, they're reaching out to me because they're selling Lululemon or whatever, or what. It's how do you not bring that across? With the self-promotion, because you can pay for ads, you can pay to get traction. I'm not talking about doing like a botnet thing, but the ads definitely show up. Like I've seen other guitarists especially on YouTube, and no, not so much on Instagram, but on YouTube, I'll run across ads of guitar players, and it's like they have 1 million views, but that's awful. It's like, what the ever living hell, and I think first thing is first, like being first in. It doesn't matter if it's great. If you're first and it's something that somebody's interested in, that's what's going to come up in the algorithm, like no matter what it is. And the funny thing is, I was talking with my old professor about it. He was like, yeah, the Mazurka recordings, he's like, there are miss notes and buzz notes all over the place, but he's like, who cares? I did it. You see anybody else's album of that?
Sure. Those are cool too.
Yeah, they're brilliant. It's like, yeah, if only my mistakes sounded like that. And it's like, he's like, first in, boom, done. And that he's got it. He locked that up, and the rest, everybody else is an imitator after that. So that kind of has a built-in traction with it. So the question is like, now, how do you do that? Like, where do you find the unique niche to push that to people that wouldn't necessarily listen to it and still be effective without turning into like a unbelievably self-promoting jerk,
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, but so Instagram, I think, is fairly kind to guitar, probably more than the other mediums. Maybe YouTube in a different kind of way. Just the guitar in general, because you can really find, and it's kind of fun too to listen to a bunch of guitar players, and they do a little like 1 minute spiel or whatever, and there's this sort of like, hey, I'm just practicing, let me show you what I'm working on.
No, that's for my.
And it's kind of fun, It's kind of like, oh, that's a pretty cool little thing, and some people have taken it very extreme, and then they still like cheat with like speeding up videos and stuff, but we'll ignore that for the moment.
Yeah, that whole scandal thing happened. Yep.
Yeah. But in general, I think it's fairly okay. Yeah, you find, so one way of looking at it is like Instagram is the most like what's the word I'm like, narcissistic thing like ever invented. Maybe it's like me, yes. Me, and how cool am me, how cool am I, and that's the whole point of that whole like medium. But at the same time, you kind of get something cool out of it, and I struggle a bit because like I don't know how many big guitar players really like putting out videos all the time, but it's sort of the new norm to do it, and I don't always want to do it. But I've also made some really good acquaintances and friends and stuff through doing it. And fans for that matter. So I guess it's good in that way. What's sort of disappointing a lot of times is like it's sort of like the superficially things a lot of times that do the best, and not the things. Actually, it's funny. I saw a thing with John Mayer recently, and he's like, the things that you think are like the great things, like your fans never really get those things, and it's not the bad things you do that they get, but it's sort of like that middle thing that they really like. Like you're like, well, this is my really good thing over here, but the one that really like hits the crowd is that middle tier thing.
I
And
noticed that with the first album that I did, like 21 years ago now, because I put it
yeah,
out in 2000. Like, yeah, I looked at like every then and again, I'll pull it up and just see like the most listened to things, and it always amazes me because the tracks that I was just like, really that one?
yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
like okay, I
I think
mean,
it was
cool.
okay. Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's like I didn't. That's not my track favorite track
yeah.
off the album,
That's not the one that I like really felt good about. Yeah,
but okay, that's like a taste. You still put it out. It's still you, but it's just interesting that you
yeah, right.
kind of maybe we played our own tastes more than anything, and then if other people pick it up, it's like
Yeah.
their particular nuance with it is a little bit shifted. Um,
Yeah, Mayer's like, well, especially because he's a guitar player, and he's like, that cool thing he like worked out that, like, guitar players would notice, but like they don't even notice even. It's like they only notice that sort of cliche thing or whatever that was pretty cool, but like really wasn't like the thing you were trying to show them. Like you were like, hey, check this thing out, and they only noticed the other thing.
well, it's that there was a thing I wanted to interject before about it. Let's maybe why. Let's think of the words. I have my wisdom teeth out, so it's ahead of
So you have no
ons.
wisdom.
Yeah, my brain just gone. Everything came out. No, it gets painful every now and again. Anyways, so uh, okay, yeah, the guitar is a very visual instrument, like
Yeah,
more so than anything else that's really there. You can just watch somebody and gain so much insight,
sure.
and because of that, I think that's the reason why it may be acclimated so well to Instagram. Because like a pianist, you're generally looking in from the side. Like very few have it like top on consistently, so you can
Yeah,
watch fingers and so on. And I'm pretty sure a trained piano player can do that and watch that visually and gain a ton of it. But with like guitar, even the simplest beginner can like look on from the front and be like, oh, okay, and gather something from that. It's just because of the nature of the instrument. So I wonder if that's like a self-feedback loop with Instagram and guitar. It's because it's so visual and Instagram is all visible. Like you don't get to do a rant there really, unless you like rant, screenshot it and put it up.
yeah.
It just kind of feeds itself. It's like, oh, okay, guitar is this, and so this is making this happen, and with that, it's probably something to do with it because I mean, the guitar and bass are both of the things. Now that's
Well,
granted.
well, and then I don't know about you, but like drums seem to translate the best in all the videos, whether it's
Yeah,
Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. They just don't seem as lame to me as every other instrument.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know why. Like, man, it's just cool to like play a drum groove.
Mhm.
You don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to be doing crazy tapping stuff or whatever. That's not particularly musical, maybe.
But is that something because we're so disconnected from the drums that it's interesting?
Maybe I don't know.
I mean,
But
like
I could
clearly,
watch a drum video like anytime. But I sometimes struggle with the guitar ones.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, some of the drum things is just kind of like okay, but maybe it's because at least I know for myself, listening to a drum groove is cool, and I get what's going on metrically and hearing it, but I don't necessarily know the physical difficulty associated with it.
Yeah.
Like, it could be this crazy technical thing, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool, and not realize that how physically hard it is. Mentally, I know how hard it is to play, but I don't know how
Yeah.
physically. But with guitar, it's instant feedback. It's like, okay, that was hard. Like I
Sure.
know where it was going to be difficult, and
So
something else.
so is something cooler because it's harder?
I mean, that's the principal question that's always there. Is difficulty the tie-in to virtuosity, or like what gives the standard of what's hard and what's cool and what's this and
Right.
all that associated with art? And I think we touched on that before with the matter of like there's basic technique that everybody needs to get to a certain level, and then you can specialize after that. But if you like, you can't use your third finger on the guitar, you're going to be pretty limited in what you can pull off till you can fix that. And I'm not talking like a Jerry Garcia who's missing a finger. I'm talking like you have them all there, you're just not using it.
Yeah.
Until you get to that point, you're not going to be able to kind of get things to be your own voice. So there's clearly a big step in the beginning to get into the average plateau. And then the other ones are like different pathways that you just have to visit and climb up with that. Like we talk about Jared Nichols or however, Jared Lee Nichols or whichever, the blues guy. He's like unbelievable. I just watched a bunch of more Instagram stuff from him today. It's like,
he's great.
Are
Yeah,
phenomenal.
he's got the nastiest vibrato ever.
Oh God, it's disgustingly good. It's like, if I ever wanted a blues solo, I would call him up, hands down. But I wouldn't want his Bach interpretations in particular. I remember I saw it, like, not to be insulting to Paul Gilbert, because I think he's a phenomenal player, but he did like an interpretation of the Sixth Cello Suite, and I had to like pause it after 3 seconds. I'm like, oh God, no. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but I can't hear Bach going. It's like, no, there's lines with that. It can be tasteful. Like I think Neil Zada's arrangements of stuff are wickedly cool. Like he did a lot of that classical music into the rock thing for his One Silent Night and the One Dark Night, and he just did a great job arranging that. It's fantastic, really, really. He gets the gut instinct of arranging something classical to a rock without turning it into unbelievable cheese, which is that's such a tightrope. It's crazy.
That reminds me of Steve Aaron, who we both study with. One of the biggest lessons I learned from him was the difference between being able to play something and be able to play something, if that makes sense. So, like, just because you could play the notes, and I think this is where rock guitar players go a lot of times, which is where I sort of came from at the time, or at least grew up with. I looked at a Bach piece, and it was like just being able to execute the notes in the right time was like good or something. Where he was like, that's not music. What you're playing is not music. And it wasn't that the timing was bad necessarily, or that that I was fingering it wrong or whatever, or maybe even that my tone was bad, though I'm sure it was. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact that just because you play the right notes doesn't mean you're actually playing music.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really great lesson for me. And knowing about Neil and also studying with the same person.
Yeah, exactly. Go figure.
Like I imagine that in the back of his head, he's hearing somebody go, just because you play the right notes doesn't make that good music, where maybe Paul didn't grow up with that. And there's like a thing with like rock guitar players in particular, and jazz too, for that matter. It's like you play the right notes, and so it's good. But I guess that's the biggest thing I learned from classical music was,
well, I mean, it's
just because you play it right doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's good music. And you really have to learn what that is, and that's a whole like mastery too. That's like a lifelong span of mastery. Like, why does you play the same time, the same everything else, but one is way better than the other?
Exactly, and it's like like that. What I just played. You can play this. I can play all the notes right. That was totally static. I just all M finger, just doing a thing, or you can just kind of. You can build a line with that, and that's the whole point. Playing the notes, it's like that's nice, but you're not singing.
Sure.
You're not giving the inflections that are written in the music, and that takes a hell of a lot of understanding, and that's where the difficulty.
I remember when I first went to college for music. I went to Mount Union College, and I want to say that it was not and harmonics. What's that called? There was a class I took, and we talked about basically the notion that it's the study of. So say you had like the same. If you had like a part where it was just like, something has to happen to those notes. Like they can't just stay the same. Even if it says it on the paper that it's just like C, 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 C. Like it needs to get louder or something needs to happen as you're playing through it. That it pulls you through. And same with like any melodic pattern or something like that. Like it should get louder or quieter.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's
like something has to happen to it. So there's all these like little like, and that's all happening at the same time as all these other things, right? So then you get this like ebb and flow of the notes, and I really wish I heard more of that in like popular music, but you don't really hear it.
Compression, yeah. And lack of subtlety. But I mean, not all of it's that bad, but some of it is. Usually the top 10, usually. But that just to kind of, I wonder if the reason why that aspect of change to a single static note is required to make it interesting, because it's the same thing that happens, like, and this is going to be waxing absolutely crazy philosophical, but just with the passage of time, because nothing stays the same. Entropy is everything. So considering that all that we live with, having something be completely static is just so foreign to what we know, period. So there's got to be some type of inflection in that. And whether or not that's like, ultimately beautiful, blah, 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 blah. There was not the time or the space to go into those types of questions. But I think that there is a tie into that, because that's how, I mean, if you look, maybe I am going to jump down this whole rabbit hole a little bit more. But if you look at like evolutionary speaking, you have like animals have created ways to communicate dominance and stuff through color and through vocalization. Yeah. So on, and we're on whatever end of the spectrum, wherever it's going to go now. So we have like millions of years of history of that being written into DNA, and then we come along and we're kind of doing the same thing, except we have at least we think we have a little bit more of an edge with a consciousness on top of that. So we're taking all this history of evolutionary dominant things that kind of like show up, and it's like, I'm colored in red, so that makes me more intimidating to this one that's not so red colored. So I get to select this, and this wins, whatever. And now we're sitting here with art as being some type of an outlet of both of those things, but much less violent, hopefully, mostly with that. But we have that inflections going on. So to have something that's totally just like blah, is just, it's a turnoff, because we don't see any type of aesthetic aspect to it.
Like something needs to happen. Gosh, I wish I could remember. Obviously, I don't remember anything anymore. But even like, it doesn't have to be dynamics too. It could be like the timbre of the pitch or something, like you were kind of saying, like it's more red or whatever. Like there's things that could happen to it that make it more interesting. And it doesn't have to be like uniform either. Well, like something needs to constantly be evolving and turning into something. And you often hear in jazz and in rock music in particular, just like uniformity, like every note's the same length, every note's the same volume, every note's the same tone, every note's the same, and it feels the same. Which is just, it's not that it's bad necessarily, but it's not like taking advantage of all the intricacies that it could have, which is, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me. So,
but yeah, that's the one thing I think every guitar player could get out of classical, or at least that's what I got out of it, or one of the most important lessons from it.
That's one of the things that I try to portray, to, because I'll have students that are taking classical because they want the foot in the door with it, and so if they sign up for one semester, that gives me 13 weeks to kind of portray as much as I possibly can to their level and get them out the door for the next steps. So, whether or not they come back. And I find that that's like, what concept of classical can I give them that will be the big turnout outside of the technique? Like the first thing is clearly, okay, hold your hand this way, do this, sit up, put it in the middle, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff I'm not currently doing right now, but I'm relaxing and talking. All that with that, and then start to try and talk about music. And it's extraordinarily difficult to just talk about the music when the technique isn't there, because there's no way to be able to do it. So it's like, yeah, I can tell you exactly how to do that, but you can't yet do anything close to that. So it's tough to kind of be like, do this.
You're still doing this.
Yeah, exactly. The favoring the first finger to the nth degree, or
yeah, right. You're playing everything with the first finger.
Yep. And it's like, well, we can't really get into the subtleties of taking the dominant and making it louder and resolving it quieter to the tonic, and all that other stuff, and it just doesn't fly. So I find myself like, in my own head, this doesn't happen in the lessons, but I'm like kind of pushing these technical things so that once they're at like a minimum thing and can tell the difference between a piano and a mezzo forte, then it's like, okay, I can at least start to get some control.
Which, by the way, is the complete range of the guitar.
Yeah. So you see a forte in the music, and it's like, that's a nice joke. that isn't going to happen. And there's different effects. It's like, but that's the thing. It's like, I have this 6-year-old student who is like fantastic. Like clearly she works her butt off, and her parents are helping her. I love teaching her. She's great. She's in the second Suzuki book. She's doing absolutely great with everything. Every week it's like, wow, and like, sure. So I'm giving her little bits of different aspects of playing the music because her technique can handle it. And it's phenomenal when it comes out. It's like, I'm like, all right, you see where it gets forte here? Let's move a little bit closer to the bridge and dig in with that, using a rest stroke when that happens. Let's make it loud, because it's the big part. And then like the next week, it's like there, and she's playing it, and it's like, this is awesome. Like that is like so exciting.
Yeah.
At that young age, because it like makes me think in another 6 years she's going to be where I wish I was when I walked into school. It's that type of thing. So I think the big thing with expression is you gotta have the technique first, with at least in a classical realm. I don't know. Well, just to use Jared as a base point, just because he's on my mind with that. Like his blues technique is absolutely stunning. And if he didn't have that range of vibrato and how he did that, like with his, because he doesn't use a pick, he uses his fingers, and he gets this huge amount of tonal variety because of that, which is awesome. And the guy like digs in, and it's like, dang, that is wickedly cool. But he wouldn't be able to express himself with that without working on the technical aspects. It's like, he probably way back in the day sat there working on his bends like a madman.
I had heard that he played with Greg Koch's son in a band.
Okay.
When they were kids, like they were like teenagers.
Yeah.
So Greg was like, "Hey, let me show you some stuff."
Yeah, that's
a pretty good mentor.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one to have for the blues guy. That definitely. So, have you been listening to anything interesting lately?
There's a couple things, I guess. Mostly, I've been listening, trying to figure out this recording thing. But at night, like when I'm listening to music just for fun, or to enjoy it, I've been on a Keith Jarrett kick. I don't know. Have you spent any time with Keith Jarrett?
Yep. Like, yeah, that was the thing that shocked me about him, is that he has like the whole Bach well-tempered clavier recordings, and he has a jazz musician that's crazy at improvise. That type of stuff makes me extraordinarily jealous. Like, I love that.
He's a very special character because he's got the jazz bebop language and modern like jazz stuff, but then he spent so much time in like classical music, that when he's what I would call like, and there's not very many of them really, like a pure improviser.
Okay.
Meaning like he can pull from anywhere. Like it's not like a stylistic thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He just makes music. There's no boundary to it. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this in the swing error style, or I'm doing this in Baroque style, or whatever. Like it's all available to him, and it's just whatever his ear hears, and he can go there. So he has the technical facility or whatever to do it, the music background to do it. Um, so like a lot of jazz guys who improvise or people that improvise, they pull from like a language, and they're almost like reiterating words that they've heard before. Um, and sometimes that's like verbatim like licks that they've worked on, right? But then there's like a whole nother side of people who just purely make up things from the ether, so to speak. And it's somewhat rare to find that actually.
Yep.
And Keith Jarrett's a prime example of that. And not only that is he's just like I said, like technically like extremely proficient. So there's really no boundaries on where he can go. And then
Hmm.
he's spent enough time with Bernstein and like um, Shostakovich and um, Stravinsky and whatever. So he's got all this like atonal things happening, plus the like Coltrane stuff because he used to play with those guys like in Miles and all those guys, and he's got all that stuff and the Bach and like it's like you really don't know. And then he also has like that sort of like pop thing happening. So like any of those things are always available, and it makes it really fascinating. So there's endless amounts of I don't know. There's probably like 50 at least of well recorded improv solo piano concerts
Oh yeah, I know.
where he had like no plan or whatever it was gonna what he was gonna do, and he just makes music, and
What
it's
was
unbelievable. Like it's the most unbelievable like magical music. Sometimes it's very classical, like 20th century is classical, and sometimes it's like poppy, and sometimes it's like Enya, and so like you just never know where it's gonna go. It's amazing.
I thought like one of his famous live albums, the story was that like he went to go like he was doing an improv concert
Yeah.
and he shows up at the piano like some of the keys don't work, they're sticking, like it's
Right.
just that isn't doing everything that he had. He wasn't able to do everything because stuff was sticking. I can't remember which one it was, but
Probably
he was
his most famous one's the Cologne one, the Cone
yeah, it was in
concerts.
Germany.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it's Koln is how you say Kern, as opposed to, but it's actually Cologne. Like that's how we say it. Yeah, which is a great
but
city, by the way. If you ever go there, it's an amazing city. Um,
I haven't yet.
oh,
But
there's this castle, or that castle, like there's this church. You can. It takes you like 50 minutes to walk up these steps. It's just this big spiral, and then you get the view of the whole city. It's a really cool city.
that's
It's
awesome.
very worth seeing.
That's like the premier one, and he like in an interview afterwards, he was just like the limits of the piano forced me to do other stuff that I wouldn't think of
Right.
on the spot. And it was like, now that's just crazy. It's like if a guitar player is doing a certain thing and they break a string.
Yeah,
You
and they just
know,
kept going. Like, yeah, they were doing a classical guitar recital,
that would be a hell of an
and they're
accomplishment.
like, "Oh, I lost three strings. Let's see. I'm gonna make this work." Yeah, he's that kind of level of musician though. Like, I don't think if he played guitar, which he might, he actually plays saxophone like awesome too, for that matter. So he's just one of those like I don't know. There's something special about that guy. But
Yep. Oh, it's like Jacob Collier. Like he's clearly a wunderkind. The kid's
yeah,
just ridiculous. I don't have his music on repeat all the time, but man, when I do catch some of the stuff, it's like, holy cow! Like the kid's just absolutely
right.
way out there, and it's awesome. He does everything, and it makes me extraordinarily jealous. But I appreciate it's an appreciative jealousy. I guess that makes it
Sure.
say it's like
Yeah,
you
I
know,
don't always like the music so much,
yeah,
but I
exactly.
think he'll. I like to think he'll get there. But he's an unreal talent,
Yeah,
really.
like, and it's just crazy what that kid pulls off. That's great.
Yeah,
That's his thing, and I greatly and I would probably pay to see him live, but I wouldn't listen to his albums. Like that's because it's just not my thing. I just can't it,
yeah,
do that. Like I get it, and that's what fascinates me. It's
sure.
like that's my thing with like serial music. It's like I understand what's going on, and that's what makes it interesting to me. But I wouldn't necessarily turn it on all the time.
Interesting.
Though I do like some of the stuff.
So
It's
like the Bartok cello suites and
yeah,
stuff. Will
yeah.
you listen to those or the string quartets?
The string quartets for sure, absolutely.
Because that,
So
that's some pure atonal
yeah,
wonderfulness.
maybe it's the timbre of the instruments that draws me in with that.
I would agree with that. Doesn't work as well on guitar, unfortunately.
No, no, not at all. So that True Temperament stuff is really starting to like. I was in another Instagram conversation with Johannes Muller about it, and just saying like, man, it just sounds so good. Like he's got a classical that's true tempered, and
Yeah.
it's so nice. Like it's so much more calming to hear. It's great.
Yeah,
So,
you figure when you buy a seven, $8,000, $10,000
oh, I can't imagine what that thing.
classical guitar, you could probably justify the extra $1,000 for the True Temperament.
Yep. And whenever that becomes lefty, I'll see about it. I mean, we'll see. And it doesn't look like it's that much bigger of a reach either. Like just watching his hands.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
don't. Everybody I know that's because I know people that have them themselves. Especially when you're right-handed, you can get them on electric guitars.
yeah, exactly.
And it's I don't think it's that. It's like $700 or something to get a neck. It's not cheap, but it's not unreasonable, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
They're like they don't even notice it. Like they don't notice it at all.
I'll have to ask him, like not like we're on friendly terms, just online, just send him a message to be like, have you noticed anything in terms of fretting that is
Yeah,
different?
everybody I've heard they have it.
The,
Now the
I,
people I know are more rock guitarists, but they're a little bit more adventurous. I know three people that have them, and they're not really jazzers or classical players, but they're not just playing bar chords or whatever.
yeah, but that makes me interested about like his approach to it because at least classically we train so much to be like close to the frets the
Yeah,
entire time.
I bet your eye and your hand coordination just deal with it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's like the eight strings fan fret. I mean, it's not true temperament, obviously,
Yeah,
but the fan fretting on it, I thought I was going to have problems with it, and that was easy. The confusing thing is the eight strings. It's like looking at it, it's like, oh, I think I'm somewhere else. If I
yeah,
don't look at my hand, I'm fine. But as soon as I look at my hand, it's like, nope, I lose it.
sure. Yeah, the extra string is more confusing. I would think that's true too. Hmm.
Yeah, I know. For myself, I haven't been listening to. I still had that detach on by Thrackle, just constant repeat. I
Oh
just
yeah.
I I don't know what it is. Half of me was thinking the other day, it's like maybe people with ADD love prog because it's constantly new. Like one of those shower thoughts. Because it.
Let me tell you about jazz.
Yeah, exactly. You never know, which is funny because like I met somebody that diagnoses people with ADD. Like that's what they do. They're a counselor, and they're like, you have all the signs for it, and I'm like, me. Like what? Lady, I forgot to eat if I start playing guitar. Like if I didn't have kids to like ground me, it'd be like, oh, I probably should shower today, type of thing. I mean, I'm not that bad anymore, but there was a time where it was easily that. It's just like
Yeah.
that's all that I would do, and I would still do that. And so who knows? Maybe that was just like a random one-off thought type of thing. But it just was like, I wonder if there's any correlation to the music that people listen to and potential diagnosis with ADD. Thoughts for a paper that I'll never do.
I I would definitely not be shocked to find out that I have some form of ADD.
Yeah, which also has me going like, is it that much of a disadvantage? Like, is it a disadvantage if you think it is, or is it school settings that cause it to?
Gosh, going off on topics here,
Yeah,
but
this is because it isn't good for a guitar podcast necessarily.
I did see an article that somebody was talking about they had ADD and like how it's actually good for like the workforce because ADD people tend to be more creative and instead of like dealing with it, there was this guy that said that he was always the person that had like off the cuff ideas and like um it wasn't restrained to the same kind of like fit in the mold sort of thing. And but then he like they were like, you really do have a pretty bad case of ADD. So you should probably take this stuff. And he started taking it, and it like took like it actually made him like depressed
Yeah, I
because
could
he was
see that.
no longer being like the creative. Like he kind of fit better in the mold, I guess, of like regular people or something. But um, he was much happier, and the company was actually happier with his sort of more outlandish ideas, I guess.
Hmm.
Just kind
Well,
of
somebody's got to be pushing the mold a little bit. And I mean, as much as it might be one of the things that's there, I'm not going to pay to get the testing because I don't care that much.
yeah.
I've made it through hopefully at least half of my intended lifespan. If I'm halfway through now at 44, I should be okay for the rest of it.
Yeah.
It um, that I don't think is going to be too much of an issue, and it's not like a matter of I can't focus because that's I can
Yeah. Right.
completely, and I'm extraordinarily organized when it comes to practicing. Like it's like timers are set, like laid out.
Yeah. It
In
is.
terms,
Yeah. Sometimes I'll try to talk to Adam, and it's like I have 7 more minutes of blah 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 left.
exactly.
Like I don't practice that way.
I got but no, that's exactly true. Sorry, I got like 15 more minutes, and I got to get this done. Um,
All right. Shall we call it?
yeah, I think we should call it. So, all
If you
right.
stuck with us this long, we appreciate you.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. It's been a fun time. I had fun. So we got to talk more this time. So that
Yeah.
was kind of like I was kind of pushing it off on you there. It's like I get a little talky.
Is that why you were sleeping?
It's falling asleep. Yeah, no, that I've been tired lately, but I think it's because I've had my wisdom teeth out, and I'm just like I've actually been sleeping through the night without a problem. Oh, it's probably because I don't know. I've been in gross amounts of pain and only take something at night to sleep a little bit. And even then, it's not like Percocet. I just take like an ibuprofen and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Fun. Well, glad you finally got rid of your wisdom.
yeah, I had to get those things pulled out. Those suckers were getting annoying.
That's
So
right.
all right,
All right, dude. Good talking.
yeah.